had since they've been developing consoles. That's interesting. It's long from over yet, but I'm really interested to see what PlayStation does with the PS4 because of the lessons they would have had to have learned with the PS3. I'm excited about that. I loved Sony back in the PS1 and especially the PS2 days, and I'd love to see them make a resurgence. I don't have a PS3. I don't plan to buy a PS3, but if the PS4 is I guess, in some ways responding to the answers to the questions that Sony, the problems, I should say, Sony have with the PS3, count me in. Akira VGA, Andrew from Video Game Auctions, talked about the idea of new hardware with a classic focus. And wouldn't you know it, some awesome insight, because I just saw something very, very recently come out, I think within the last day or so, that someone under the S&K name is actually going to be releasing a Neo Geo handheld which actually plays all the old Neo Geo classics. What an awesome idea. It's niche. It's not for everyone, but what a cool idea, right? Brand new hardware that does nothing but play back catalogs of games. That's a great idea. I think that's fantastic. What do you introduce if you introduce something like that? Something that doesn't have to be on the cutting edge of hardware. I.e. it's cheap to make, cheap to produce, and therefore cheap to sell. 2, licensing games from the past is actually a lot cheaper than going out and, trying to create a brand new AAA title or even something that's not a AAA title. That costs a lot of money. Development of video games is hard, folks. Buying back licensed titles or licensed titles from the backlog of games from consoles past, not nearly as expensive. Now, you do run into issues of competition. For example, where if you wanted to do a TurboGrafx 16 game, it's going to be hard to find that because Nintendo is licensing a lot of those older games on the Virtual Console. Understood. Nintendo probably wouldn't let any of that happen for some of their old games. But if you could make something like that happen, I would be totally down to seeing that. And I'll tell you what I already mentioned, if they did that with the PC, I am 100% on board. If Good Old Games makes a PC platform by which you can play a ton of those old games, count me in, 100%. And one of our new commenters, Furious George, said absolutely, in 100%, because let's see the variety. The variety of the console battles of the past is what we need to see in the future in order to make things more interesting and to really see the innovation spike and really see some of the advancement in consoles and in video game creation that we've all come to know and love about those consoles. So I think that's a great point. I love to see the variety. I love the competition. And you know what? I was just watching a documentary the other day. I mean, Microsoft lost not just millions, but probably close to billions of dollars in jumping into the console market circa 2005. If you were going to jump into the console market in 2012, you would have to have a pretty fat chunk of change these days, folks. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon. That to me just sounds like a very difficult thing to do. Not saying it can't happen. There are wonderful people out there with wonderful brains doing wonderful entrepreneurial things, and I hope to see them succeed. But let's see some variety. Let's get some cool ideas up here, and let's see what can be brought from some of those innovative minds, and show the competition. I say let's keep it coming. So, in terms of my own opinion, that's what I wanted to cover really from the community this week. In terms of my opinion, I don't think we're going to see anything new. I don't think we'll see anything like that. I think what you might see are some people kind of backdooring their way in, a la Apple TV, for example, which I know is very much a set-top box. It very much is about kind of, working your TV, working your internet, trying to consolidate everything in your house into one box. Why not consolidate the video game platform at the same time? All that's lacking from an Apple TV unit to be able to do a lot of the things that we just talked about is a controller, because it's really dependent on the connection. It could do what OnLive does through Apple TV very easily. All you need is a controller. or a keyboard, or whatever have you, right? Not that Apple's going to release a keyboard for it, and I think that probably wouldn't do very well for us. But you guys know what I mean. It's a very interesting concept. I think something like an Apple TV could present itself as a competition to the next generation of consoles by virtue of the difference in what job it actually does. So I don't think we'll see anything. But I do think that, I'd be all for it. I mean, would I go and buy one? I don't think so, unless I saw many of the things you guys talked about. Backwards compatibility. Quality over quantity in terms of the game catalog, unless we're talking retro, right? Even then, I'd probably see quality over quantity. I'd love to be able to see some of the, multiplayer content. Love to see that instant save technology. I'd love to see the ability to save my games in the cloud and be able to download the game so I could buy them once and play them forever. Buy a game that sits, whether it's on Steam or anything else. I downloaded this game, I have a key for it, I'm registered for it. So what, my computer blew up? I want to, or so what, my Xbox 360's fried, or my hard drive on it blows up. I want to be able to play that game again, and I want to be able to jump in exactly where I finished that game with my save games forever and ever and ever. Why not be able to do that, folks? Storage and the technology that holds all of our data out there now. We can't have some service like this. If you introduce a console that does all of those, I'm buying. And by the way, the price point's got to be right too, because and you can justify some of that cost by having the network functionality. You don't have to. It's not about polygons. It's not about speeds and feeds anymore, folks. It is about really pushing the envelope into making gaming experiences that are cut above what we know now, or at the very least, continuing in the tradition of great interactive experiences. Because after all, that's why you guys are sitting where you're sitting, and that's why I'm sitting where I'm sitting. We all love those great interactive gaming experiences that we had in the past, right? That's why the Clan of the Grey Wolf even exists. So, with that being said, I mean, a great conversation last week. I thought, there are so many different ways to take the conversation that we had last week and stretch it endlessly into so many different places. And I thought you guys did a great job of really kind of bringing all those things to the front. I think it's very clear about what you guys would like to see when we move into the future of what those consoles would look like, no matter what they end up doing, whether it's the Wii U or Steam box or whatever the hell else it might actually end up being. In that case, I think we pretty much know what that's going to look like based on your commentary, and quite frankly, I couldn't agree more. Just my 2 cents, which leads me to the question for next week. And I wanted to do something that felt a little bit different for next week. I thought we could get a little bit wrapped up in the axle, especially with me opening up to some of the questions that were very much left to interpretation. Let's ask something that's got a little bit of an easier question to answer. I started thinking recently, I came upon some old pictures, what else I came upon was some of my old Magic cards. Now, every year I go to PAX, I get duped into buying 1,000 more Magic cards just to be able to play Magic again. And I often do for a couple months and then I stop playing. But my point is that, I remember playing Magic quite often back in school in ways that most people look back at their experience from school and think, man, that's the most uncool thing I've heard, right? You probably played like after school. Maybe you played during lunch. Maybe you even had a group that got together and played before school. That's pushing the envelope, right? Here's the question, but it got me thinking about what kind of stuff you guys do when you gamed at school, or some of you that are still in school, what you do. Here's my question for you for next week. We should have those nostalgia juices just a-flowing. Did you guys play games during lunch or during school hours? Did you do that? Because I want to know if that was an experience that we just had at the time, because we did D&D, we did Magic, and I want to know if you guys still do that kind of stuff. And by the way, If you do, as always, what I want to know is do you have memories of that? If you did back in the day, what kind of memories, what were you playing? What kind of memories do you have of it? Tell me a good story this week on the Weekly Ringer. I want to hear about your experiences. What kind of stuff did you do? What was the coolest moment you had doing that kind of thing? That's the kind of thing I want to know. And if you don't play during school hours, when do you play? Or when did you find time to play with your friends? So I think it's an interesting question. Can't wait, as always, to see what you guys come up with. Thanks for watching, as I always say. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of the community here at the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and specifically with the Weekly Ringer. I am the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and there is no reset button.